So, I get this letter in the mail. It's a final notice to cease and desist from my HOA, sent by certified mail. They're trying to shut down the small daycare I run out of my home. They've already fined me thousands of dollars and threatened legal action. They've even been telling my neighbors I'm running some illegal operation that's putting everyone at risk. This letter was supposed to be the final nail in the coffin, a slight knowing smile. But here's the thing. For the last 10 years, my entire career has been writing and enforcing the very rules they're trying to use against me. My name is Uche, and I'm the state licensing director for child care. They think they're picking a fight with some random homeowner. They're about to get a masterclass in state regulations from the guy who writes the rule book. Rewind sound effect. So how did this all start? Like a lot of neighborhood drama, it began with something completely ridiculous. It began with the sound of children laughing. Life in our neighborhood was, for a while, exactly what we'd hoped for. It was quiet, full of families, and felt like a real community. My wife's a teacher, and I've spent my career in child welfare, so opening Uche's Little Learners just made sense. We saw a real need right here on our street, with young families struggling to find good, affordable childcare. So, we did everything by the book. We converted our downstairs, passed every single health and safety inspection, I mean flying colors, and filled out mountains of paperwork to become an officially licensed family child care home. We were small, just a handful of kids, most of them living right down the street. For the first year, it was perfect. Parents would do a quick drop-off. We'd spend the day learning and playing, and the sound of kids in our fenced backyard was just part of the neighborhood's rhythm. We weren't just a daycare. We were part of the village. We were helping our neighbors. We thought everyone felt that way. We were dead wrong. The first letter from the Homeowners Association was almost funny. It was on this thick, intimidating letterhead, and the subject line was violation of community bylaws, unapproved commercial operation. The complaint? Noise. It cited excessive noise levels, including shouting and laughter, during the day. I had to read it twice. We were getting a violation for children laughing. I decided to be the good neighbor. I called the HOA management company, and I was polite. I explained that we were a state-licensed family child care home. What they failed to grasp is that in our state, the law specifically designates licensed family child care as a residential use of property, not a commercial one. This is a crucial distinction that prevents HOAs from using a generic no businesses clause to ban daycares. I told them I was happy to talk about any real concerns, but that the sound of kids playing during the day is pretty normal for a residential neighborhood. The property manager on the phone just shut me down. The rules are the rules, she said. The covenants prohibit running a business from your home. She either didn't know the law or didn't care to. I calmly pointed her to the specific state statutes she could look up. She promised to look into it. That was the last I heard for 2 weeks. I actually thought they might have realized their mistake. Nope. They were just warming up. The next letter wasn't about noise. It was about unacceptable commercial traffic. This was just absurd. We're talking about 4 or 5 cars stopping for 2 minutes each, twice a day. A pizza delivery gets more action than that. Then came the fines. First, $100. A week later, $250. Then $500. They kept fining me for the ongoing violation, tacking on late fees and administrative charges. In 2 months, they were claiming I owed them over $2,000. But the real trouble started when the HOA board, led by a president I'll just call Brenda, decided to poison the well. They sent a community-wide email warning about unauthorized businesses that could hurt property values and safety. They didn't use my name, but everyone knew who they meant. Suddenly, the friendly waves from neighbors stopped. One neighbor, whose own kid had been in my care just a few months earlier, told me she was concerned about the liability. It was a straight-up campaign of harassment. My home, this safe space I was building for kids, started to feel like enemy territory. My wife was a wreck, worried that a complaint would somehow get to my own agency and torpedo my career. The parents were getting nervous, asking if we were about to be shut down. It was just this constant, draining pressure. They weren't just attacking my business. They were going after my family, my reputation, and my peace of mind. The breaking point was that certified letter, the final notice. It said if I didn't shut down in 15 days and pay over $4,000 in bogus fines, the HOA would put a lien on my property and begin foreclosure proceedings. Foreclosure. They were threatening to take my family's home because I was providing a licensed, legal, and needed service. That night, something in me just snapped. I'd been playing defense, trying to be reasonable with people who were anything but. I was trying to handle this as Uche the homeowner. But they had declared war. They had threatened my family's security. I went into my office and pulled out the rule books. It's one thing to know the laws for your job. It's another to read them when your own home is on the line. I saw it all laid out, crystal clear. My state has a law that explicitly says a licensed family child care home cannot be prohibited by an HOA. A moment of quiet reflection. I set the letter down on my desk and just stopped. Through my office window, I could see them, 4 kids in our backyard, completely lost in their own world. Maya was showing the others how to make a potion with grass clippings and water. Little Marcus was laughing so hard at something that he'd fallen over in the sandbox. They had no idea that adults were trying to destroy this place over paperwork and power trips. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about bylaws or property values. This was about whether we're the kind of community that protects spaces where kids can just be kids, or whether we're the kind that crushes them because someone doesn't like the sound of laughter. The resolve hardens in his voice. I picked that letter back up, but this time, I wasn't reading it as a threat. I was reading it as a declaration of war against the wrong guy. That's when I decided to stop being Uche, the friendly neighbor. It was time for them to meet Uche, the state licensing director. I didn't fire off an angry email or make a furious call. I did what I do best. I wrote a document. It was a calm, professional, and absolutely devastating 5-page letter. On page 1, I introduced myself as the homeowner and methodically listed every bogus violation and fine they'd sent me. On page 2, the lesson began. I quoted word for word the state statute that defines a licensed family child care home as a residential use, making there no commercial business, rule totally irrelevant. I cited the court case that backed it up. On page 3, I tore their complaints apart. For the noise, I attached the city's ordinance on daytime decibel levels and pointed out they had never once filed an official complaint or taken a measurement. For the traffic, I noted that their own rules allowed for deliveries and guests, and that my daycare created less traffic than either. I laid out how their selective enforcement was discriminatory and therefore illegal. On page 4, I listed their illegal actions. I explained that by trying to shut me down, they were interfering with the state's authority to regulate child care. I informed them that their fines were baseless and their threat of foreclosure was an act of bad faith harassment. And then, page 5, the final paragraph. It read, "Given the board's consistent and flagrant disregard for established state law, I feel it is my professional and civic duty to provide this clarification. As the state director for child care licensing, I am intimately familiar with these statutes as my office is responsible for their enforcement. Any further attempts to harass, fine, or restrict the legal operation of my licensed family child care home will be met with immediate legal action, and I will be formally requesting an investigation by the State Attorney General's office into the HOA's discriminatory practices." I signed it Uche, State Director, and sent it to every single board member and their management company. The silence was deafening. A week passed. Then, an email from Brenda, the board president. One sentence. "The board requests your presence at an emergency meeting this Thursday." I walked into that meeting, and the 5 of them were sitting there looking like they were about to face a firing squad. Brenda started stammering. "Mr. Uche, we received your letter. It seems there's been a misunderstanding." I let that hang in the air for a moment. Then I said, "There's no misunderstanding. You understood your bylaws just fine. What you failed to understand was the law of this state. You do not have more authority than the state legislature." They folded. Completely. The next day, a formal letter of apology from the board arrived. All fines were dropped. All violations were purged. The letter even acknowledged that licensed daycares are a protected residential use under state law. Lesson learned. Word got around fast. The next time I was in my yard, the neighbor who'd been giving me the cold shoulder came over to the fence. He apologized, saying the board had completely misrepresented everything. Just like that, the tension in the neighborhood vanished. My daycare is thriving. The sound of kids laughing is back, and it's not a violation. It's the sound of a happy, healthy community. They messed with the wrong homeowner. They thought I was just some guy trying to run a business. They didn't realize that, in a way, my business was the law. That was my battle. But I know so many of you have your own stories. What's the most ridiculous HOA rule you've ever dealt with? And how did you handle it? Share your story in the comments. I read them all. And if you enjoy seeing the little guy win, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. At the end of the day, this was about more than just my daycare. It's about knowing your rights and not letting anyone, no matter how much authority they think they have, bully you in your own home. Bureaucrats and bullies only have power if you give it to them. So do your homework, stand your ground, and never, ever be afraid to teach them a lesson they desperately need to learn. Thanks for watching.